Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Celestial here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 3 of What If Deku Had the Sharingan. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, we begin. During their exams, both Izuku and Katsuki took down the 0-pointers in their respective zones and gathered enough overall points to get first and second place while only being 1 point away from tying. Unbeknownst to them, All Might had seen both of their performances and they had gotten on his radar as potential successors for One for All. After Bakugo and Midoriya took their entrance exams, they spent the rest of their time before UA hanging out. Izuku woke up early for his first day at UA High School. If he didn't, he knew Katsuki would leave him behind. After getting ready for his first day and saying goodbye to his mom, he opened the door to leave and was face to face with Katsuka's almost always grumpy-looking face. They talked as they made their way to the train station. When they got on the train, their conversation ceased for the duration of the ride and Izuku thumbed through his notebook as Katsuki lazily watched from over his shoulder. He wasn't looking for anything in particular, just skimming through his latest notes and looking for anything that might have needed adjustments. He stopped when they arrived at their destination and struck up another conversation with a now much less talkative Bakugo. Midoriya talked and Bakugo pretended he wasn't listening as they made their way to and through UA until they arrived at room 1A. When they got to class, they were some of the first ones there. The pair quickly took their seats and Bakugo relaxed, putting his feet up on his desk. After the class filled out some more, a familiar blue-haired boy entered the room and an argument ensued. Their new classmate locked his eyes on Katsuki and stiffly marched over to him. Before Bakugo could say anything, the boy tried going on a tangent about how him putting his feet on the desk was disrespectful to UA as a whole and their upperclassmen. The two started to loudly argue, and Izuku shrunk down into his seat to avoid getting sucked into the confrontation. His efforts were thwarted when a familiar brunette came in and addressed him while entering the room, the plain-looking boy. The argument between the two bickering boys stopped as she ran over towards the group. The two boys stared at her as she continued to talk, and Midoriya attempted to keep his end of their conversation. Their talk was cut short, however, when they realized they heard the door slam open and saw a man stepping out of a yellow sleeping bag standing in the doorway. They found out he was their teacher, Aizawa, and the students quickly quieted down and went to their seats. Aizawa took his place at the podium in front of the classroom and told the class to put on their gym clothes and head to the grounds. The group of students gathered where they were told to, and Aizawa explained that they were going to use the physical exam tests from middle school to test their quirks. He tossed a softball to Katsuki and asked him to throw the ball as far as he could using his quirk to demonstrate the difference that using it would make. Bakugo reeled his arm back and with as much strength as he could put into his throw and his quirk without hurting himself, he sent the ball sailing while screaming "die" on the top of his lungs. Aizawa watched as the number on the device that was recording the distance rocketed higher and higher. When the number stopped, he showed the class the result, 735.2 meters. Some cheers of excitement started coming from the class but were silenced by Aizawa quickly. He told the class that the one with the lowest score would end up expelled. The previously bubbly brunette standing next to Midoriya and Bakugo tried to object and complained it was unfair. She shut up by their teacher when he explained that the world was full of unfairness and that it'd be their job as heroes to correct those unfairnesses. With the pressure of expulsion on their backs, the students did their best on the tests. The first test they did was the 50-meter dash. Katsuki and Izuku got 3.13 seconds and 4.02 seconds respectively. On the grip strength test, Midoriya scored 456 kilograms. The rest of the tests went just as well, and Izuku was able to score in the overall top 5 of the class. His ball throw wasn't as good as Bakugo's, but he was still able to get it past 400 meters. When the results were shown, the name, Minoru Mineta, the shortest boy in the entire class, started openly weeping and begging Aizawa to reconsider his expulsion. To the shock of almost the entire class, he wrapped the crying boy in his capture scarf and dragged him to the principal's office while telling the class to get changed back into their uniforms and check out all the documents they needed to back at the classroom. A few of the students who had thought the threat of expulsion was a ruse to push them to do their best were left shocked, barely able to voice their disbelief. The truth of what they'd have to face to be heroes and how intense UA High School was started to sink in for the kids. The students changed and went back to the classroom as instructed, and Minoru never ended up returning. Before we get back into the story, I would like to say that we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive is a channel based on a variety of anime lore. If you are interested in content like this, make sure you click the icon on the top right corner or check the description below for a link to the channel. Now, with that out of the way, let's get back into the story. With their first day of UA high school behind them, Midoriya and Bakugo left to go home. As they were leaving, Izuku was stopped by someone putting their hand on one of his shoulders and addressing him by name. He turned his head to see it was his new blue-haired classmate, who formally introduced himself as Tenya Ida. He proceeded to apologize for the way he acted during the entrance exam and congratulated Midoriya for being able to see the true nature of the test. Katsuki repressed his laughter at the very notion as Izuku tried to explain that he hadn't discovered the hidden part of the entrance exam. Before he could finish saying the words "I didn't," the girl he had met at the entrance exam came running towards the group addressing them. "You three? Headed to the station? Wait up." Bakugo groaned as he rolled his eyes. Four eyes was annoying enough, the hell you want round cheeks? Once she was near the three, she properly introduced herself. "I'm Achako Uraraka. You're Tenya Ida, Midoriya Deku and Bakugo Kaken. Right?" Katsuki's eye visibly twitched as he let off tiny explosions in his hands, and Izuku gave her a confused look. The two tried to talk over each other as they responded. Bakugo yelled at her, "Call me that again, round cheeks, and I'll kill you." While Midoriya tried to question her as he laughed, "Deku?" It was Uraraka's turn to be confused when she saw how they reacted. Her confusion was evident in the slight hesitation in her voice. That's what you two called each other all day. Right?" Katsuki huffed as he turned away from the conversation and Izuku explained the names to her. "My real name is Izuku, Deku is a name people used to call me to bully me. Kaken just calls me that out of habit. Bakugo's real name is Katsuki, Kaken is just a nickname I gave him back when we were kids." Tenya expressed his confusion at the notion of Bakugo calling Midoriya a derogatory name when they seemed to be so close, but was ignored by the rest of the group. Bakugo hadn't been listening to them anymore, and Uraraka was still talking. Gotcha. Sorry. But, Deku, well, it just screams do your best. I kinda like it." Izuku smiled at the idea. "Deku it is then." Ida tried to express his concern and protest the idea of someone using a name that was supposed to be degrading, but he brushed it off and told his new friend it was fine since it didn't carry that contest anymore. When Deku turned to Kaken for confirmation about what he'd said, the three of them noticed he was walking away. Midoriya chased after Bakugo and told him to wait up. Without bothering to turn his head or slow down, Katsuki addressed the three of them. "If you three are just gonna slow me down, then piss off. Eat my dust or hurry the hell up." Still not used to the way Bakugo talked, Ida was shocked and muttered to himself about how vulgar his language was. Achako and Tenya followed Izuku's lead, and the group of four walked to the train station together with their first day of high school behind them. Their next day at UA was their first real day having classes. In the morning they had normal classes like English, the only difference from a normal high school was that they were taught by pro heroes. During lunch, they ate top-notch food made by the Pro Hero Lunch Rush. The majority of their day was spent adjusting to the fact that things wouldn't always be as exciting as their orientation day and in normal classes. During the afternoon, Class 1 had hero basic training, and the excitement and anticipation were unbearable. Kaken sat cross-legged in his seat, hunched over with his arms resting on his desk, one finger rapidly tapping, and a smirk on his face. Behind him, Deku sat straight in his seat with his arms at his side, grabbing the edges of his chair as his entire body shook, while he grinned like an idiot. Out of everyone in the class, they were the most excited, and it was obvious why. The number one hero, their favorite hero, All Might, was going to be teaching the class. All the built-up anticipation was dispelled, and excitement let out when All Might finally entered the room. Bakugo's fingers stopped tapping, and Midoriya's body stopped shaking as their attention was completely on their idol. All Might explained that the class would be doing battle training, and the two childhood friends felt a spark of excitement well up in them. The next part of the announcement got the entire class just as excited as the two boys. They would be wearing their hero costumes for this exercise. After All Might finished explaining, the class took their costumes and headed to the locker rooms to change, and then ground beta. Bakugo and Midoriya were the first two to enter the grounds, their costumes almost complementing each other in terms of color and design. This didn't go unnoticed by the class, including their two new friends who brought attention to it, with Uraraka thinking the idea was cool. When All Might saw the pair, however, he immediately noticed the ears of Izuku's costume bore a striking resemblance to his own hairstyle. He quickly pushed the thought to the back of his mind once the entire class was out and in costume. All Might explained that they would be doing an exercise of heroes versus villains and that the villains would have to hide a fake bomb in a building while the heroes had to either capture the villains or find the bomb. He had the students make teams by drawing lots. Once everyone had formed teams, the first match was announced. Team D, consisting of Katsuki and Tenya, was going against Team A, consisting of Izuku and Uraraka. The first match of the class set a high standard for the rest of the students. Ida was completely outmatched by his opponent and Midoriya was able to show off just how strong his quirk is. An unexpected turn of events resulted in the match ending in an unintentional loss. Todoroki's match ended up being a 2 vs 3 and it caught everyone's attention. Thank you all for watching the video to the end.